Okay, so I have a large data set here. This is a national survey where they call people on the phone all over the country randomly, cell phone and landline, and ask a bunch of questions about demographics and health. I have the data from 2016 from Pennsylvania, and for my first variable, I'm going to be looking at physical health. So this would be the number of days in the past month that the person has not been in good physical health or has been in poor physical health. And we see some clear missing values there, but I'll take care of them in a second. So before I do that, I'm going to add a sheet here, clicking and dragging to week 7 and press enter. So this will give me a place to paste the data. Again, I left clicked on I. I'm going to cut that to the clipboard with a Control C. That would be a Command C on your Mac. I'm left clicking on week 7, clicking on the A, left clicking on the A, and Control V or Command V if you're on a Mac. And that should give me all the physical health data. Going back to week 3, the two groups I'm going to be looking at, there's some interesting variables in this data set on what the childhood experiences were like. I'm going to look at this childhood experience. What this is, the person, most of these are adults, there's a few children in here, but they're asked, before the age of 18, did you live with someone who was in prison at any point? And 1 would be yes, 2 would be no. So my group, 2 groups would be those who lived with someone who was in prison when they were a child. As a child, they lived with someone who went to prison at some point, or they didn't. Those are my 2 groups. Okay, what I need to do now is apply a filter. I am going to do one thing. I'm going to grab that scroll bar, hold down with the left key, and scroll all the way down to the bottom. I just want to make sure that all the data copied in, and indeed it did. If these 2 columns are not the same length, something went wrong. Probably you didn't give it enough time to cut and paste, so maybe just try the cut and paste one more time. The next thing you're going to do is select the 2 columns. So I'm left clicking on the A and holding that down as I drag across the B and then removing my click. At this point, I'm going to create a filter. So I'm going to left click on this little filter symbol, and that will put a filter on these 2 columns that makes it a lot easier to make sure the data doesn't become unpaired. You could sort just using the sort features here, and that should work, but every now and then the data becomes unpaired. This is a sure thing. So you should see little green arrows by each of your column headers here. I'm going to click on this first one, just sort A to Z. This will put it in order from low to high. Notice that that second column came along with it when I sorted the first one. That's a good thing. I'm going to go over to this scrolling option, go down until I get past all the valid data. So here I'm scrolling with my scroll wheel. Here, so 30 days in a month, that's a valid answer. Beyond that, these are missing data. So what I'm doing, I want to get rid of everything from here on out. I need to get rid of. It should not be part of this analysis. So I'm left clicking on the number beside the first row that has this missing data. And then, without clicking anything else in the spreadsheet, I'm clicking over here on this scroll bar and going all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my computer and left click on the number beside the final row. What that'll do is it'll select all the rows in between. Then I can right click and delete these rows. Okay, now I'm going to go back up to the top and do the same thing with my second column sort A to Z. So I know 1s and 2s are valid responses. Scrolling down. Okay, I believe these 7s and 9s were ones who weren't sure or didn't want to answer. For the purposes of this study, I can only work with ones who gave me answers. So I really can only have the ones who had 1s or 2s. I need to delete everything from this row on out. So I'm going to click on the 2213 there. That's my first row of missing data in the second variable. And then I'm going to grab that, throw it down to the bottom, hold down Shift, left click, right click, and delete these rows also. So now every data point here that I have left is all valid data. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and run my t-test. So to do that, I'm going to add-ons, XLMiner. You will have to go to get add-ons first, and you'll have to type in the search XLMiner and press enter. And then I think for you it'll say install. You'll go ahead and install. You'll have to give some permission. I think this is safe to do. If you're not comfortable with that, talk to me as soon as possible. But you'll get that installed so that when you go up to tool or add-ons, you'll see this XLMiner analysis tool pack and you can press start. So this gives us a variety of statistical tests to run. Excel has a very similar type of analysis tool pack. This is actually modeled after Excel's tool pack. And you'll see here a t-test. There's a couple different ones. We're going to use toSample assuming unequal variances. Notice that I think chapter 31 did talk about paired t-test. You could use this if you had paired data or toSample. I don't think, talk with me if you think your data is paired, but I think all of you will have this toSample. And instead of checking the variance assumption, for now, let's err on the safe side and assume that you don't have equal variances. So what we need to do here, listen closely to this part. We should by now have two separate groups. In my case, all of these people here at the top, all of these people here, and I could scroll down, are ones who, when they were growing up, up until the age of 18, sometime in there, someone they lived with went to prison. Down here at the bottom of my data set, where these 2s are, we have all the people who didn't grow up with someone in prison. Maybe to make this clear, I'm going to click on the B, Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to do a color scale. I'm going to have minimum value as red, maximum value as green. Done. And so what you can see now here is all the rows that have a red cell, they grew up with someone who went to prison. All the ones with a green cell did not, between when they were born and when they were age 18, no one in their household went to prison. So that color coding makes it fairly clear. That conditional formatting, by the way, is a powerful tool that you can use in many situations. It's not necessary to run this test, but it does help us see the difference between variable 1 and variable 2. So variable 1 is going to be all these rows that have a red cell. These are all the people who had someone from their household go to prison during their childhood at some point. But here's the important point. What I'm really testing for is a difference in the average number of days of poor health between this group, the group that's coded red, and this group, the group that's coded green, sorry. So what I'm looking for, my data values are actually these data in column A for both of these blanks. The difference is it'll be for these, let's say, children with prison family experiences will be my variable 1 range, and the ones down here, all of these data points will go in my variable 2 range. So I'm clicking on the very last person here who had a family member in prison when they were growing up, and then I'm going to scroll up to the top, hold down the Shift key, and press the top student, or the top individual, sorry, in that category, and then click in the variable 1 range. I could also, if that was too complicated, I could look what cell does this group begin their data, and that would be A2 down to A161. I could just type that in directly. Now I'm going to get the health data, the poor health data for that group that didn't have someone in their family go to prison. Holding down Shift key, pressing the last one there, and going to variable range. So just to clarify, the letters in both of these blanks should be the same. It may be a different column for you perhaps, but if this is B's up here, this should also be B's. These are both being taken from the same column. It's just this is being taken from your first group of people, and this is being taken from your second group of people. The hypothesized mean difference. This is null hypothesis. The null hypothesis in our case is always going to be 0. In other words, our null hypothesis is there is no difference between the two groups in the average number of whatever is in this variable. In our case, days of poor health. Do not click the labels box because we only selected data. We did not select the column header because we couldn't really have selected it for the second group anyway. So do not check the labels. Leave this as 0.05, and your output range, just click over to the side anywhere you want, and then click in that. Click OK, and if this doesn't give you any output, don't panic. Give it a minute or so. If it still doesn't give you output, send me an email, or if your computer screen freezes, I don't think it should happen. I think this is about the biggest data set of anyone in our class. But if that would happen to you, let me know and I'll help you manage that. So now the next thing would be reading and interpreting the output of the 2-sample t-test.